Welcome. December the 13th, 2019, Friday the 13th, marks the day. This is part one of the truth behind the beef between 50 Cent and Jay-Z. You all have waited long enough for this. So, for your patience and virtue, you guys have definitely wanted to see this video for a long time. So I give it to you on this special day. Let's go! Now, 50 Cent and Jay-Z, the beef. How did it start? What happened? What was the situation? How did all of these things come full circle? There are a lot of moving parts and a lot of common area and common ground between the two. 50 Cent from Southside Jamaica, Queens, and Jay-Z from the Marcy Projects of Brooklyn came up in different eras. Now, when 50 Cent was coming up as a little kid, his mother, Sabrina, he was known as Brina's boy. His mother left him at a very young age. She was a hustler. She ain't play. I don't even know if he knows. He probably knows it. But his mom was very synonymous with doing deals on the move. Like, she was going from the Baisley Projects, going off of there, off the Q6, moving work back and forth on the Q6. Walking, doing deals. They said she put out a burner on the Q6, holding people in check while she did her deal. I mean, with baby 50 Cent in tow. You know, these could just be street rumors, but it is what it is. You know, I wasn't there. But this is his bloodline. This is what he comes from. So as he's growing up in the neighborhood and going through an era where he's surrounded by the biggest epidemic in history, you know, in his era, when he's coming up, the man in charge now, like, most of them are going under. But the stories of legend is there from when Pappy was there and they handed the keys over to Preem and all the 5%ers. You know, as AZ said, we all grew up as 5%ers, but something must have got in us because most of us turned to sinners. The 5%ers end up, you know, turning into hustlers. You know, you got Preem, Prince, family members, and when Preem had to go down for a little minute, you know, he put Prince in charge, and Prince has just had a whole different way of running things than how Preem was running things. There was a lot more violence and a lot more, you know, cowboy stuff in the 80s that brought a lot of unwanted attention. So by the time he went down for a little bit, you know, was no movement. A lot of things was stagnated, and a lot of people was out for self and doing their own thing. So it spread it out. So you started to see other people come up from other areas, hustlers, other people from, getting work from here to there and moving up. So there was no more real structure anymore as far as, okay, we doing this over here, we doing that over there. We gotta make moves over here and this is it. But certain blocks was still, doing what they do. Other places was doing what they do. And a lot of buildings that people didn't know nothing about, like Woodside have gained strength in the hustling game. Like they really became a player in the game once other people were going down and other people needed guys to, facilitate. Woodside came up on the low over in Queens, and a lot of people didn't know that. And other hustlers, they was, getting people to move around. So there was a lot of moving around going on in Queens at the time. So 50, being a young guy as he was, coming up in the game, he comes up, gets knocked, serves to an undercover, gets caught with some burners and some weight for some guys that was, some people that knew, affiliated with some people that went wrong. And some of these cats happened to be from Brooklyn that had some association with Jay. How is it a small world? Jay had nothing to do with this. I'm just saying. When he got knocked and took his deal, Fifth did, it was an undercover cop. And he was set up by somebody who was from Brooklyn over there from Southside. And he happened to be in the area that hung out hustling with some people that knew Jay. Had no connection with Jay and Fifth just yet. Alright? Because remember, at this time, he's not 50 Cent. He's Boo Boo. So, Boo Boo goes down. And he's hearing about this wild cat that's out there making moves from the Fort Greene projects by the name of 50 Cent. 50's doing this. 50 did that. This dude robbed this rapper. This guy, man, he's hearing the stories of this guy. But meanwhile, in the projects where he lives, they call him Boo Boo. And then he decides to take the name of 50 Cent once he was deceased. He started going by the name of 50. Loose change. It's a metaphor for loose change. But he wanted to be known as the infamous 50 Cent. But anyway, this goes down in 94. On the other side of the spectrum, you got Jay. Jay was coming up and trying to get into the record game during this time. And during the early 88 epidemic, where that big crack epidemic was everywhere, hip-hop was blowing up. And while hip-hop is blowing up, in 93, 94, Jay is trying to really make his mark into the rap game. Now, he came up hustling with DeHaven over in Marcy, doing minor things. A lot of things that you hear from Jay, like he was this big-time hustler and he's moving pounds and weights and all this crates, loads of... It's all fictional. I'm not saying that these things didn't happen, It just didn't happen around Jay-Z. See, at this time, he was not called Jay-Z. He was called Sean. That's what he was known as. Sean was not known as Jay-Z at the time. So they would call him Lil Jazz or Jaz-O once Jazz started getting a hold of him. Because after '88, they moved out to Trenton, New Jersey. Jay left high school, dropped out, and went to Trenton, New Jersey and started making money with DeHaven over there. That's where his path really started. He wasn't no big time Brooklyn moving weight guy. He was not. His legacy started really in Trenton, where he was working with DeHaven. Then, under DeHaven, who basically was bringing him in, that's when he started hanging out with Jazz. Now, he had already tried this thing with Kane, but Kane was falling out of the mix. But Kane was helping right along with Jazz. You know, they tried the Hawaiian Sophie thing. It didn't work. Big Daddy Kane got a hold of him and tried to help out as well. He did some tours and some shows with Kane. It just didn't work. He was trying to make his move and his mark, and it wasn't working, but he was trying to get away from the hustling game after the '89 incident with Calvin Klein, where they got busted in the whip, and you know, it's a whole different experience. Calvin McCarthy was the man. You know, DeHaven and all those guys, they were the heavyweights of the game. You know, and Jay was always fascinated by flashy things at the time, like many young kids or young hustlers in the game. But he knew the rap thing is where he was good at, and he knew, like, man, that's clean money. I can make 30 off a brick, but one rhyme could beat that. So definitely this is the avenue he wants to go down. So while 50 is, you know, getting bailed out and going to juvie and getting had to go into a high school program to avoid jail time, Jay-Z is trying to branch out and start a record company and get a record deal with Russell Simmons and everywhere else, and trying to really put himself in the game. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, you got Preem. Preem is just coming home in 1993. He's getting out, and when he comes home, he touches down. Everybody he used to know, he feel owes him a favor, is now moguls and doing well. You know, Russell Simmons is really blown up. When he was gone, Russ was this little guy with Run DMC. They had Bimmy from his crew out there with Run DMC and all these guys with Jam Master Jay. These were you know, his crew. So he's looking right at Russ first. You know, it's rumored Big Pat was the guy that loaned Russ some money, you know, to really get things rolling for them over there at Def Jam. When, you know, the banks weren't finna give them that kind of loan. They had to get a street loan to get those records off the shelf. So he felt like, you owe us a lifetime debt. I'm here to collect. I'm finna get him back in this game. Now, Preem was always around the record business, you know, and always felt like he saw this coming before he went away. So when he came back, everybody was in position, because he was seeing it in the 80s, and he was trying to get down with it. From Curtis Blow, Run DMC, other acts putting on concerts, they seen where the money was going. So now they seeing all these multi-million-dollar rappers Preem won't in. And he won't in a big way. So Russ is who we go to first. And it's like, okay, we got to talk. So right away, boom, there they are. Talking, coming up with ideas on how he's going to help them out. And, you know, they talking a legal tip and bringing him in as he wants to be a consultant to some projects and bringing some guys in different angles. Meanwhile, there's a young hustler by the name of Boo Boo who's trying to get into the rap game as well. There's some guys across the street from him in Southside Jamaica, Queens that's making some noise. And they popular, called the Lost Boys. Freaky Ty, Meech, Mr. Cheeks, and all these guys. And they ripping it. And these guys are having them success, and they're bringing the rap thing to South Jamaica, Queens. And a lot of people are inspired by that. Then comes an up-and-coming producer in the game, Irv Gotti. And Irv Gotti is, you know, in the streets working with trying to get people on board and do things in a certain way and find talent. And he's really good at finding talent and producing records. That's what he's good at. So, meanwhile, back to hustling, Fifth has found a lane. He's found a good niche because he got a good team around him, got good suppliers. He's coming up fast. One thing about Fifth is he understood the game and he understood business. So while he's hustling and coming up, Jay's on the other side trying to get into the record game. Now, Spanish Jose, who owned the corner bodega, knew of Curtis 50 Cent Jackson due to the fact that one of the suppliers and some people that he knew actually knew Spanish Jose. One of the connections. Who Jay-Z puts in his raps a lot and tells stories that Spanish Jose taught him a lot of stuff in the game when no one has any knowledge of him even knowing Spanish Jose. DeHaven knew him, but Jay, he's like, I don't think they've ever even met. And I would know, but more than anybody. So Jay's right-hand man is saying like that didn't happen. So anyhow, that's that. That's their own story to tell. But these connections between the two, they seem to know different situations and different, you know, avenues. The same people in between. But their lives are almost finna parallelly meet and come full circle. Now, trying to get a record deal has turned out to be a very hard angle for Fifth. He's running from this side to that side, trying to get a record deal. It's not working out. Everywhere he tries to get a record deal, the situation just seems to be like, oh, this kid is not ready, and you know, he's not doing this, he's not doing that. This kid's just not ready for it. Now, it wasn't that his demo wasn't nice. It just was like, his voice is too light, and you know, who is this guy 50 Cent? It's alright. It's just, it's better guys out here. You know, it's not what we're looking for right now. So he's trying to come up in the game, and he's working with some producers in the game of Tone and Poke. And he's got a deal with Columbia Records coming up. And Nas helped him with this deal. You know, he saw a guy from Queens coming up, and Trackmasters was a group of producers with Tone and Polk, and they were synonymously coming up in the game, working at time. Trackmasters was some of the biggest guys in the early 90s. You know, from the LL Cool J era, you know, all these things, Trackmasters. So Tone and Polk came through, started doing their thing, and they took a liking to 50 Cent, and they wanted to put out they were going to EP and make the records for him and do all these things with 50. And it was there that they were, you know, the main guys, that they were going to work with him, and Nas kind of helped bring that together. Then Tone and Polk kind of crossed Nas in the process, but that's beside the point. We'll get there a little later. But Tone and Polk decided that it would be advantageous to link with 50 Cent, and they got the Columbia deal. And sure enough, the 1996, it was written, second album. Tone and Polk was some of the main producers of the album. They got their critical acclaim. So when working with 50, you know, what was that? Power of the Dollar album was coming out in 2000. And they were getting ready to do all of these different songs that they had produced and worked with. Ghetto Quran, How to Rob, all of these different things were basically recorded on a mixtape. Now, the Ghetto Quran song was on there, and a lot of songs that he made, a lot of people didn't like him talking about situations that they felt he shouldn't have been talking about, people and saying their names, like Preem and Prince and all of these different situations. They didn't like the fact Fifth was speaking on them in such a way, you know, and that created atmosphere of, it wasn't the fact that, like, they said, they heard that and said, we got to go get 50 Cent. It never went down that way. When Ghetto Quran and all these songs were out and were leaked out, it was more of the disrespect that 50 had coming back. Like, what? They feel a certain way, man? F them dudes, man. He really was very disrespectful in his responding back to the situation. Like, they mad over a record? Like, them dudes already went to jail, and we talking about stuff that already happened. What is he talking about? Like, this stuff has already happened. It's old and gone. Like, I can't believe somebody would be upset about it. So he didn't believe it was even coming from them. So he think it's just coming from some haters, and he's like, man, F them dudes. But it was going back as he was like telling Preem, F him. You know, so it's a lot of things get lost in translation. It's not, you know, people don't get a chance to have a conversation to get things clear as to how the dialogue is going back and forth. So while Trackmasters is doing this, 50 is coming up in the game, and he's just ruthlessly attacking and going after a lot of people. And Wu-Tang, he went after the Wu-Tang Clan, and he was just relentless. I mean, relentless. I've never heard anybody diss the Wu-Tang before. That was the first time that's ever been done. Like, who would diss them? And he was, man, he was just doing his thing at the time. And in 98, you know, around that time, Tone and Polk are trying to come up with ways to, you know, they're shopping all these songs. And when they got the Columbia deal, Jay had just blew up. You know, Jay was the biggest thing in the world. So How to Rob comes out, and it's on the In Too Deep soundtrack, which Nas got Nature on there. He's got a song with 50 Cent. He's got them with Trackmasters, which is basically everybody looked at as Nas producers, and really got them on the map. Nas has got 50 Cent in line with them to come out, and Nas is really the spear, head of trying to bring people up. So in this process, How to Rob is leaked out, and How to Rob is a huge success, and it just got everybody mad for no reason. He's making a joke with the mad rapper whose character that everybody knows as a jokester, prankster, or what have you. It's like, you gotta be kidding me. How could you even do this? Like, 50 could not believe that this song, that other rappers are getting upset over a How to Rob song, till it irritated him. It irritated him. So, as the How to Rob song came out and all of these topics were brought out, there was a incident that happened with the Wu-Tang Clan and all this stuff, and they talked about it, and Big Pun wanted to talk to him. And the Terror Squad, he was being hated for a lot of different areas, and Nas was helping putting out some of these fires that was being started, and Fifth just couldn't believe that these dudes was feeling this way. But Fifth at the time, he was cool. He had some protection from people from Southside Jamaica, Queens, so he wasn't really feeling it. Like, nobody would harm him. Then, some things happened where the incident where he's out getting ready to promote his album, Power of a Dollar. Right? He goes in there, he's promoting the album, he's in Atlanta, it's a whole different situation, and Ja Rule at this time and Irv Gotti have aligned themselves with Supreme. Preem is taking a liking to Irv Gotti as a producer. Preem is trying to get into the rap game and the production and the producing side of the business. Irv Gotti is coming up in the game, and that gives Gotti street credit. Irvin Lorenzo becomes Irvin Gotti, and now he's this mob guy who's grilling in the camera every time you look around. So his brother Chris, and they've adopted this, the persona of, Supreme. So now, with that being said, it's spread it on to their artist who's coming out, and doing well for himself, and Ja Rule, who now feels like he can press people, and he's a gangster in the street, and he's hard like that, and he goes up to 50 and tells 50, you better go do this and that, and we all know how that went. They get into a scuffle, later went to a hotel incident, the light switch, where 50 was stabbed in the studio, and, they got him out of there, and all these different things. All of these things that went down, Jay-Z hears about it and go, wow. Like, that's crazy. So once this is done, this whole incident with Irv Gotti, they're blocking anything that 50 is trying to get done after this incident. Like, they're making it really difficult for Columbia Records to get him in promotions, get him in the looks. And it's like, look, we just got a call from Murder Inc., and they don't want nothing to do with him, and, this is that, and it's a whole mess that's going on over there. So now, that they've gotten to this part of the situation, Jay-Z hears about the story. And Jay remembers the How to Rob song. And he says, okay, I got something for him. You know, because this guy was like, oh, what did Jay got? He just got 30 million. He don't want all this stuff coming through his front door. He don't want all these slugs coming through the front door. He just sold like 4 milli. So when Jay was making the album, it was during this time. Like when the stabbing and all this stuff happened. So 99 is getting ready to, you know, come up, and the Jay-Z album comes out, and it was like a manna from heaven. He mentions 50 Cent in the intro of the album. Mike Jordan, a rap outside, Jay working. Now watch how quickly I drop 50. I don't like playing. Niggas cannot stick me. Niggas cannot jam me. Niggas. I was like, oh. Oh. So he did that. Then he did on the Snoopy track talking about, I'm about $1. What the fuck is 50 Cent? So before the album dropped, he took 50 Cent out. When 50 Cent was on stage, they performed at the same place. And he did it live. And Fifth was getting ready to do his song. And Jay did his, I'm about $1. He dropped the beat and I'm about $1. What the fuck is 50 Cent? And this is the first time he had ever met Jay. And Jay ran into him in the back room and he was like, oh, you know I had to get you, right? I had to get you for that song. I had to get you for that line. But it was cool because he was the only one, and 50 was like, he gets it. He's the only one that's really cool about it. He's like, you know I had to get you back for that line. But he was cool. He had no beef, no malice, nothing. So Fifth was like, oh, okay. He gets it. He's smart. He knows that this is an opportunity where we can make some money. So right away, it turns into a competition. The very next day, he calls up Tone and Polk, say, Jay just dissed me on stage. He's like, what? And he's like, somebody else told me that too. And man, they went to the studio like the next day. Tone and Polk is happy as can be because this is going to make the album even bigger. So he comes out with, you know, Be a Gentleman. The Jay-Z diss record by 50 Cent. And they put that out. And Be a Gentleman is everywhere. It's doing well. But he doesn't, you know, then the album comes out. Then, you know, people get to hear it and hear the song. And everybody's like listening to Be a Gentleman. And it's got some street buzz. It just doesn't take off like everything else. Then all of a sudden, right when he's getting ready to do a video with Jennifer Lopez, for Thug Love that Nas ended up doing, and he was supposed to do what? A song with Destiny's Child or something? Or some, it was Destiny Child and 50 Cent. I'm sorry. It wasn't the J-Lo video, yeah. You know, that came later. Thug Love was the Destiny Child song. He's supposed to be on in the video for that song because he was on the record. And right before they was going to film the video, that's when he was shot in front of his home. And when it first happened, people thought, oh man, Jay-Z and Murder INC did it because Be a Gentleman was out, the song, and the mixtape, and a lot of people put all that, but the people in the streets immediately just, it just went from where it is. But Jay's name was mentioned and got publicity off of it. Jay-Z, who had just went through a major incident for the first time in his life, that it was publicized with the stabbing incident of Lance Rivera, who was the business partner of Biggie Smalls, and they both owned Diaz Records. And the details of that was sketchy at best, but Jay-Z was arrested and charged and was basically facing a case which wound up being a probation case for him to plead guilty to. So his name being attached to this wasn't a very nice thing for him at the time. So immediately, the story, that didn't last about a week or two before this happened. Now, Columbia Records didn't drop him just yet. They got the album. They're getting ready to drop him. Once they find out he survives the shooting, that's when they drop him. And they just destroy the album, powered it out. Back then, back today, this would have been nothing but the best promotion for an album ever. But in 2001, or 2000 rather, that was it. And this was the beginning of the end of Tone and Poke and 50 Cent. Because now they're like, oh man, what are we going to do? We still want to work with this guy. We believe his talent there. 50 went into recovery and was coming back, and they were trying to get him back into the game. But at this point, it's a lot of things against him. He's got Murder Inc. against him. Supreme don't really like him. He has been talking very venomously towards them. Jennifer Lopez song, I'm Gonna Be Alright, Trackmasters was doing the remix. And 50 Cent, who wasn't known, they were still trying to work with 50 Cent and bring him back. Jennifer Lopez got a call from Irv Gotti saying, you don't want 50 Cent on this record because 50 Cent, he's a known gangster, and, he just got shot all these times, and you don't want that around, don't bring that around Jennifer. And they trying to tell, Benny Medina all this so Benny can convince Jennifer this isn't a good idea. So they brought Nas in instead, which led to a 50 Cent Nas situation, because Nas didn't understand what the problem was between Ja Rule, him, and the whole nine. So Nas ended up coming to do the record with Jennifer Lopez on the remix, which, caused tensions with Tone and Poke and with Nas. And that was the end of Tone and Poke doing business with 50 Cent. But at the time, what Jay did, and Jay is so smart, Jay was taking Tone and Poke anyway away from them, from 50 Cent. That was his big move. So they were like, okay, let's get, Jay-Z in here and do some work. And they were like, can we get like Jay on the track? And they was like, well, if we beat you in 2K, we'll pay you to do the song, but we'll do the song for free if you win. So they won, and they did the song for Jay for free. But they had Jay-Z on the track. So they was just happy just to have Jay-Z. So, they were like, yeah, we got Jay. Now, The whole thing about these guys is that they come up out of a wave that's different from what other people would see. Like, they see something they want and they go after it with Tone and Poke, you know? So when they did the song Jigga, Jigga, that nigga Jigga. If y'all got love for me, I got love for y'all. So when they were on the Blueprint and they did that album, that song with them, Jay did that because it was a double-edged sword in a way. It was a shot at 50 Cent and it was a shot at Nas because Traxmasters and Nas fell out. But back in '97, they did one song with Jay. They did that Face Off song. I'll never forget that. But this was the start of something. Because Fifth was in a war mode at the time. And while he was in a war mode, trying to come back and find his way in, he saw the mixtape game as a way and an avenue to get back. And he said, this is how I'm going to get in the game. Mixtapes. So right away, the mixtape game came along. And that became his new entrance into the forefront. Then comes this picture that appears. That it was in the magazine, street magazines. And it's got Jay-Z and Supreme. Jay-Z's hugging Supreme, and Supreme is just in the magazine. And at this time, it became 50 Cent and became all out war with Supreme. And he sees Jay. And Jay is hugging Supreme. From that moment on, Fifth said, oh, okay, I got to destroy them. And Jay just went from ally that I was cool with to competitor. And I'm not at the point where I can contend with him, but I'm taking them all out. And I got to start from the ground up. So he went to make tapes talking about Preem, talking about everybody he was not caring anymore. He felt he was ready. Because he had a squad with him after that was pretty much tight. Started to build and make G-Unit. Once the Lost Boys fell apart, all those guys who, Domination and all those guys, they all formed up with what 50 was doing. And the movement he had going with the mixtapes. And that created a whole new avenue. And that picture with Jay-Z and Preem, that started a whole new thing and a whole new movement. And that picture we'll go into in part 2 and what the meaning of that picture was about. I'm out. And don't forget, hit the Cash App up, donate to the page. If you like what you heard in part 1, part 2 is coming out very soon. It's your boy Carcino saying don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and select all so you can get everything that happened here. And if you want to hit the Streamlab and leave me a message in detail, or you got questions or anything, just hit the donate button and you can do the rest from there. I'm out.